on today's Streamer Sunday. This is a recap. This is a recap from the last week's episode that I missed. Labeling content, things that are related to labeling content. Now, this could be, related to a lot of different things, right? Not just one or two things, here and there. This is labeling content as a whole. So there's a couple different things that I've broken it down into, and we'll get into it. What is labeling? Why is it important? Types of labels and implementation. And then I'll see if you guys have any questions. You can always DM me questions on my socials. If you have my number, you can text me, you can message me on my socials, you can email me at lifeofallie@gmail.com. That's lifeofallie, ALLIIE, @gmail.com. Your requests or questions or comments or concerns, and I will read them whenever I get time. So let's get into it. This presentation is perfect for you if you're wondering how to and what to label certain types of content on different platforms. Hopefully I can provide you some helpful information and insight. When I first started streaming, I just kind of was told to just make content, right? That word gets thrown around all the time. And a lot of times we get it, right? Because we've been in the world of social media for a minute now. Those of us that are like in our later 20s into early 30s. So we know all about that different stuff. Now, when it comes to labeling your content, the reason why I'm going to talk so much about it and why it's important before I get into the meat and potatoes of the conversation, you need to understand as a viewer yourself, when you are going to look stuff up, what are you looking for, right? What is your main thing you're looking for in the moment where you're going to look up a funny video, or maybe something happened where you need to look up specific type of videos, right? You're using specific wording. And you're looking for specific social media platforms, maybe certain websites or articles for specific answers to, solutions to your problems, right? So when you think of it like that, it makes a lot more sense why labeling your content is so important. For example, and I can show you in a moment once we go through this, I'm going to go through, like, for example, my YouTube videos and show you why labeling things are so important. And this kind of goes hand in hand with the last video I did and the last conversation that we did about social media marketing and such, and promoting on different social platforms. So what is labeling? It is to inform of what it is, to organize everything in its place, and to advise and create understanding around what it is you are making, whether it is your brand, your content, your products, your services. You as the creator need to know what it is you're putting out there into the world and make it clear cut for the people that are coming to not only support you and see what you're about. Not everybody's going to like what you're putting down. Everybody's going to pick up what you put down, and that's okay. Not everybody's meant to ride the wave you're on, right? We do that in my tarot readings all the time when I do tarot readings on lives. Those of you that are watching this on YouTube, we do tarot readings sometimes on my streams, and that card comes up a lot for some of us. It's me specifically. The spirits love to call me out. And I play that part in social media marketing because not everybody is going to like the content you're creating. So with that being said, you need to come into this with backbone and with understanding that it isn't for everyone, and that is okay. Make your content unique, your own, and put it out there anyway, but make sure that it is not scattered and organized in a way that is appealing to the people wanting to see what you're about, because they're going to have a lot less of a hard time judging you when it's so clear cut. What is labeling? So to informing your audience on what it is you want to create to help them make more educated, I have a typo in there, I'm sorry, educated decisions about the choice to whether to consume or not. So for me, for example, I cuss a lot in my streams, right? We talk about a lot of vulgar things. We're always talking about drug and alcohol, right? So my content is labeled for mature audiences, and you get a warning on Twitch before you even click into it. Before that wasn't there, now it's there, and I'm glad that they're doing that because it kind of protects us in a way where people assume, hey, I can be here even though it says 21 plus. It's like, well, no, you can't, because you're not mature enough to handle the kinds of conversations that we have. And that's just a very small portion of what I'm talking about. That's very minor. I'm talking about in general labeling your content, as far as little as the title, as big as the age restriction on your content. So regardless of what it is you're going to label it for, or the reasoning for it, just doing it in general covers your own ass legally. Okay. To organizing your content, brand, products, services into a user-friendly experience, easy to understand and find exactly what they're looking for, creates CPM, which is clicks per minute, which is just a fancy way for saying engagements or the process of conversions of views into clicks. In marketing, CPM or CRM is like very similar. It's basically, the metric that measures whether or not the customer will be a returning customer or the viewer will turn into a customer. It is the act of converting that view into a click. And to achieve that goal, you do that by organizing your content in a way that, for example, for me, I have my girlies that love the makeup content, right? So I've got some of that. I've got my cooking content, I've got my gaming content, and I've got my streaming tips. Those main 4 things alone bring in so much viewership, not to mention Zepeto audience, my crochet audience. So there's like multiple mini sub audiences within the larger bug army audience, and like tapping into those different sections really is what projected my growth across all platforms, and which is why I'm able to like speak on this and offer some advice. And I did do this whole presentation literally within the last like 20 minutes, so there are some typos and I apologize. I will fix them before I actually go and upload these. So to advising your audience, moderators, and followers on what it is and where they can find their desired content makes their experience with your brand better each engagement and upgrades upon feedback. So you asking for the feedback can increase your trajectory to success, because you're going to be listening to what it is they're wanting and implementing that into whatever it is that they are wanting. And if you notice, I do that a lot, you guys. I'm always having polls and asking y'all what you want me to do when it comes to art, when it comes to cosplays, when it comes to stream changes, Discord changes. I very much include the community. So I think that if you are someone who is looking to start streaming, or if you already are and you're just looking to like, what can I do to get, to show them that I'm about the community, like these are things to think about. Making sure that not only, and labeling is very minor, I'm getting ahead of myself, but like this does play a part in it, because you will learn your audience better when you're paying attention to this stuff. If you look at the analytics, labeling your streams and your videos and your shorts and your TikTok videos, you can look at your analytics and see what keywords, what trends, what music, what colors, whatever it is that is in that content that is bringing in those views. Understand where that viewership is coming from and act upon that to create more engagement with said content, and recycling content through other social media platforms, which I've talked about in previous videos as well. So types of labeling, there are 2 main types of labeling. We got the brand labeling and content labeling. Brand labeling is letting your audience know what kind of brand you are, what you stand for, what to expect, and it summarizes you as a whole. For example, for me, everybody knows I am the loud, fun, energetic type, but I can be strict, I can be stern when needed, and when it's down to business, it's down to bass sacks, right? So everybody knows that. That's my brand. My brand, when it comes to gaming, everybody knows that, I'm bad at games. That's the joke. So that's the brand. Like, you establish familiarity, and therefore it creates consistency going forward. So with content labeling, this lets your audience know what kind of content you are creating, providing value for, making it easier to get to your targeted audiences, and providing the best viewer experiences. Now, that's a lot of verbiage. So long story short, content labeling is kind of like what I mentioned, like for Twitch, with the mature language, we put the age restriction in there when I'm posting on my socials and on my blog and such. Certain content falls into certain categories. For example, when I'm going to post a blog post, I have a preset list of categories that I can put each individual article into. So if I'm writing an article about streaming tips, I'm not going to put that in the parenting category. I'm not going to put that in my couponing category. I'm not going to put that in my makeup category. I'm going to put that in my content creation category because that's what makes sense. So really, it's just finding everything that works and putting it in a box, if that makes sense. Think of your content as a whole like a filing cabinet, and you're just trying to find the right section to put that file, right? So implementation going forward, just, putting all of this that we've talked about so far into action. Social media labeling. Social media labeling refers to the practice of adding informational labels or tags to specific content or accounts on social media platforms. These labels are designed to provide additional context, highlight potential misinformation or controversial content, or indicate the authenticity or credibility of the source. So that kind of tapped on everything I just said and summarized it. Age restriction, certain, maybe this pertains to a certain race or cultural group, whatever, like whatever the content is, we're just talking about it as a whole. Like if you're an activist for animal rights or climate change or whatever the case may be, you obviously are going to label that piece of content correctly, right? Something that was for BLM, right? You can't label it for BLM and it's like for a grocery ad, right? So context matters, and that's what labeling does for your content, if that makes sense. Content labeling includes tags, SEO, keywords, phrases, famous names, trending topics, categories, and preferences, etc. So when you're thinking about this going forward, when you're about to post that next YouTube short, that TikTok video, that Instagram reel, think about what tags you want to use. If you're doing a piece of art, whenever I post my paintings, if it's a Paladins champion, I've noticed that hashtag Paladins art gets so much retweets, so many views, so many likes. That is an automatic engagement generator. I know that right off the rip. If you are someone who, for example, she crochets, right? She could use that hashtag crochet talk on TikTok, knowing that is going to bring views to that video because there's already a group looking for those types of videos. It's just like when you go to sell on Etsy, right? You want to sell to a specific group of people that are already looking for the product you're making, right? Does that make sense? It's the same thing with your content. You want to attract people who are already looking for the type of content you're creating, and then you're taking that extra 2 steps for the 2% that may or may not be interested in what you're doing. So that's all that does. That was a very short presentation, but I wanted it to be super specific because, believe it or not, when I do Q&As, or I haven't done one in a long time. I think it's been exactly a year since my last Q&A. But the last time I did a live stream Q&A talking about like streaming tips and stuff, back when Charles was in here all the time, I had a couple people ask me about, when it comes to your stream, like, is it important to label it when you're promoting it? And yes, it is. You want to let people know, and like, for example, I tell people in Paladins, in the Paladins community, when I get these large raids of like 100 plus people or 50 plus people, I'm like, okay, hold on. Just so y'all know, like, I'm vulgar. I say some fucked up shit. Like, I give them the rundown before they decide to stay here for a while, right? So, like, everybody knows that. You create, again, the familiarity around your brand. People know who you are, what you're about, what you do, and that expectation's already set there before anyone can really, create judgment there. So when it comes to labeling your content, it is very important because it can be the start of something new and something great, or it can stop the trash before it comes in, if that makes sense. So let me know if there's anything that I could have touched more into. If you enjoyed the video, let me know. You can like, comment, and share. I want to give a shout out to all of you that have been coming into my YouTube channel and just, subscribing and liking and sharing and supporting the channel. I've been seeing the growth so far. We are very close to 600 subscribers on YouTube, so thank you all for that. I appreciate you so much.